Welcome to My Healing is Your Healing, a podcast for the woman who is ready to stop performing and reclaim her voice. I'm your host, Celeste, and around here, we don't do surface level. We go deep. Each week, we'll explore concepts like self-discovery, radical honesty, and the kind of healing that rewrites your story from the inside out. This is a space for truth-telling, for remembering who you are, and for coming home to yourself, louder, braver, and more radiant than ever. So come as you are, and let's do this together. Let's begin. Welcome back to My Healing is Your Healing, and I'm your host, Celeste. Today, we are exploring a topic that is as personal as it is collective, and that is generational healing. For many of us, the way that our parents and our grandparents approached life didn't leave space for therapy, healing conversations, or emotional intelligence. Therapy was only something that you turned to in crisis, if at all. So growing up, many of us were taught to just push through it, to keep quiet, and to not rock the boat. Talking about your feelings wasn't normalized. And if you did seek therapy, there was often a stigma attached to it. Something must be wrong with you. And that's the world that so many of us were born into. Our parents and our grandparents were taught to survive, not to reflect. They were told that strength meant silence, that stability meant conformity, and that healing was a private matter. Or worse, it was a weakness. And so much of that programming has been passed down to us, even when we don't realize it. But here is the truth. When one woman chooses to heal, it doesn't stop with her. Healing ripples both backwards and forwards. It shifts family dynamics. It breaks cycles of silence or self-abandonment. And that creates new possibilities for us and for our children. It opens the door for conversations that weren't safe or acceptable in our parents' time. And what is so powerful is that therapy, coaching, and healing spaces are now more accessible and more normalized than they've ever been. We live in a generation where seeking support is no longer something that you do in a crisis. It's something that you do to grow, to evolve, and to reclaim your own voice. And that change matters. Because when we choose to step into healing, we're not only rewriting our story, we're creating new stories for those who come after us. Our guest today, Robin Hauser, knows this in her bones. Robin is a self-leadership coach. She's a mentor, therapist, and a trauma-informed guide with more than 20 years of experience in the mental health field. She has worked everywhere from children's shelters to private practice, from military family support to coaching women around the world. With a master's in clinical psychology and a background as a certified clinical trauma professional, Robin has dedicated her career to helping women break free from people-pleasing, from generational programming and self-doubt by teaching emotional intelligence and practical self-leadership. But what makes Robin's story so powerful isn't just her professional background. It is her lived experience. From childhood trauma and adoption, to stillbirths and loss, to being the caretaker for her parents, Robin has lived through more than most can imagine. And yet her mantra today is simple. So this conversation with Robin is about reclaiming your voice, setting boundaries with confidence, and discovering how your strengths, even the ones that have been exploited, can actually become the keys to your freedom. And that's where the heart of generational healing lies. Because when we begin to break free from old programming, when we stop repeating the cycles of silence, people-pleasing, or over-responsibility, we create healing not just for ourselves, but for those who came before us and those who come after us. So today we're going to talk about what generational healing actually means and how we can recognize the patterns that we've inherited ourselves, and how reclaiming our power creates a ripple effect across families and communities. So let's dig in. Hello, Robin. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and to be able to share with your audience.
Likewise. All right. Well, I have a lot of excellent information that I want to share with our listening group here. So I'm going to start off asking you about your story.
Yes.
So, your story is so deeply layered. You've got adoption, trauma, loss, and resilience. Can you share a short version of your journey and how it shaped your understanding of generational programming?
I would say, looking in hindsight, I can tell now having parents that were a little bit older, because it took the adoption journey took a while. And then them having a midlife crisis and moving us from Miami, Florida to the Midwest to live on my mom's generational family farm with my grandparents. And we traveled around the United States in a motorhome for 2 years, and I did homeschooling. Um, there was a lot of messaging that not just my parents being a little bit older, but then from my mom and her father too, and the farm community, those were older generations around us. And being an only child, there wasn't a lot of people to bounce this information off of, whether it was true or not. Um, and then as I got older and became a mom myself and was working with children and still in relationship with my mom and her mom, realizing the messaging and especially working with the foster care community and children that were in court with their families and trying to work on reunification and those things, a lot of the grandmas were now raising their grandkids and listening to messaging and listening to these grandmas who are learning now to be moms to these young kids after having fallouts with their own children and their own daughters that has now caused them to make a decision between whether to continue having a relationship with their own child or making a very hard decision to distance themselves so that they are able to raise their grandchildren and not have these grandchildren raised outside of their family. What they had struggled with and having them share with me so raw with their thoughts and emotions of this is what I'm going to do different and I can't believe I did this, and with women especially the limiting thoughts of the self-sacrifice and the responsibility to nurture and give all of yourself to the point of there's not really much left. And moms that would come in during an intake and I would say, "Okay, what's good about you?" And they would say, "I'm a good mom." Mm. And I was like, "Oh," I would hear my mom in that too. And she was a stay-at-home mom. And so much of her life I felt like was lived through me. And that's a heavy burden. And all of that, putting all of that together and watching her relationship with my grandma, and that was very difficult at times too. And I, not being from my mom and being the Spitfire that I was, very much was in her face, challenging her thoughts and her beliefs and her relationship with her mother. And it got so much louder as I continued working with these families and becoming a mom and recognizing like it doesn't have to be this way. There's not a trophy at the end of the day for the sacrifice. And I have to have my own identity as well. And having that all unfold was very interesting.
You gave so much depth to that answer too. Like there's so many concepts that I'm so curious about exploring with you.
Yay.
I mean, just because my parents are older too, they waited to have me until they were in their 40s. And so, right now dealing with a dad who's in his 80s and I'm still in my 30s, it's just like, this is not the life I thought I was going to have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but also exploring, like, I'm curious to see what it is that you think that the stories or the scripts that come up for that generational programming, right? Especially when it comes to emotions and feelings. Because growing up for me, my parents got divorced when I was 10. And it felt like I did something bad because they were putting me in therapy because nobody else went to therapy. You don't talk about your feelings, right?
No, no, you drink. That's
That's
socially acceptable.
at least in the 90s and the 80s, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Wow. Yeah. That's I had to go to therapy too because I got to the point where it was like I would beg my parents like, can you please get divorced? Like you do not like each other and this is miserable. And watching my grandparents so closely too, it was they were married during wartime and it looking back in history does it plays such a big part and I teach and help heal through education. For me, it's if I understand it, I don't fear it anymore. If I understand it, it helps some of what feels malicious actually make sense. So, thinking about history for women up until our moms, but really us. We are the first generation of women that can own a house, have a credit card, buy a car without having a man sign on it. And so that programming of as a woman, you have to be good enough for a man because our moms, their moms, all of the generations previous to us, that if you wanted kids, if you wanted a family, you had to be good enough to have a man.
It's crazy.
Huge.
So that's why all the Disney movies are like, your life can't start until you have a man. Prince Charming,
Yes.
hello. Yeah, let me come save you.
Yes. Yes. Oh my, moof. Once I realized that, we had a couple of the Disney's books in our house, and I told my daughters, like, and these are gone now. We cannot, no man needs to come save you. You don't need rescued. Nobody needs rescued. So, yeah, that recognizing that and then hearing again other women, remembering conversations with my mom and interactions with her mom. And even there was a moment in time. So I am divorced, I am remarried, and I was older for my remarriage. And then the idea of we want to have children. Um, he was not, he was just having a hard time committing at the beginning there. And I was devastated, but I was at a place where I know I want a family. That's why I got divorced. He was ready to have a family, and I knew that's not who I wanted to have a family with. So I was ready to either have a family by myself or have a husband, but I was not going to have him as an extra child. No, thank you. I'm not taking care of anybody else. So therapy again. Um, but I went to my grandma for advice and asked her, like, what do I do here? Do I just let him go? Do I keep him? Do I ignore? Do I say this is good enough? And she said, well, if you can't live without him, then he's the one. And I remember thinking that about my first husband, and that one clearly did not last. And I thought, no, if I'm at a place if I can't live without him, that's codependency. And that's not going to ever work for me. And so if I'm truly going to honor myself and honor him, I have to be honest about the fact that I have goals. And if that's not where he's at, then he is okay to make that decision too. But I don't need someone to make me complete. Our moms didn't get to have that. And neither
No.
did their moms. And so the generational messaging now, and then our girls who are kids that are in our faces of like, that's wrong, that's not right. And that pushback is, it's very loud. It's very loud.
For you to even see it sound. So like, I love that your grandma's advice to you, you were like, huh, okay, let me change that because that doesn't resonate with me. I should not have to be whole with another person. I can be whole by myself. And then you recognizing that it's like so loud coming from younger kids now. And you're just like, that's not how I grew up, but I'm leading towards it.
Yes. Yes. I am a huge proponent of knowing that 50% of what you have to offer to your children is met with 50% of what they have to offer to you. You learn and grow together because they expose all of your outdated systems. If they trigger you, then that's a place that for me, I'm like, oh, that means I need to look at myself and be willing to heal. I need to look at that and see, is that actually a truth that I'm willing to jeopardize or maybe harm our relationship with because I'm so stuck in it? And usually it's a no.
I love that thought. Okay, so this is getting into generational healing. So many women hear this phrase, but they aren't sure what it really looks like in practice, right? So, how do you define it? And how does it have this ripple effect backwards to our families and then also forwards to future generations?
Mm, this is like when I glow. I love it. I love working with young women that come in that are old souls that already they are like, I don't even need to have kids. I need to get my mom in check. Like, I have so much love for her, and this relationship is so important to me. But what she is stuck in, her messaging, her whatever she grew up with, makes it hard for me to have that relationship with her. And I need to learn how to communicate with her in a way that she hears me and it's not me judging her or telling her she's doing it wrong because that causes separation. And that is super fun. But when the women come in that are late 30s, mid 50s. I have had a woman come in that was 77 and she's like, well, I'm not dead. Let's go. What do you got? I'm like, yes, let's go. Because you're going to teach me so much. um, but those women that still have their moms alive have that ability to learn what their moms were thinking and looking at their moms as a human that's not on a pedestal as an authority figure and having those conversations or having the ability to understand maybe where their mom was coming from instead of that you just don't get me, you're never going to understand me, you pushed and shoved all this stuff down my throat of what success means. It means I'm married, it means I have kids, it means I have a house, it means I have 2 dogs, like whatever. Or um the fear base that comes from the generations before us because they lived in such survival mode. There was not discussion about emotional intelligence. That, I mean, if you had that, you were extremely lucky. That was rare, but otherwise it was women surviving, men surviving, and love came through fear and the messaging came through fear. And now these moms are raising their girls and they're noticing that the pushback from their kids is there is no reason for the fear. Why are you trying to keep me in a bubble? Why are you protecting me? Because our girls now are saying, do you not think I'm capable? And it's not that. It's not that they're not capable. It's, as a parent, of course, we want them to be okay. We want them to be safe. We want them to know we're completely in love with them and we give them the whole entire world if we could. But that's not preparing them for the independence. And having these moms be able to question and ask, like, okay, so I've parented this way, but is it my truth? And that unlocks that generational healing because then it's that, where did that truth actually come from? And what kind of awareness do we have around it? And can we move forward with understanding and love and compassion rather than hatred and disconnect and grief?
Where were you when I was growing up?
Both, right? Trying to grow up too. I was trying to figure it out.
Um, Everything you just said resonated with me so much because I had a mother who was very like fear based towards me, right? She didn't want me to make mistakes. And I very distinctly remember her telling me before I started high school, don't do drugs, don't drink alcohol, don't have sex, or you'll die.
Okay.
And she tells me now, like, I don't remember telling you that. You're totally lying. Oh, but I lived by this, right? Like, I was such a good girl. And
Mm,
it's just because she was worried about me. But now that I understand from this perspective, because growing up, you have this narrative of what you think your mom is supposed to look like. And I'm sure she had a narrative of what a daughter is supposed to look like. She is not June Cleaver or Lorelai Gilmore. And sometimes that breaks my heart, right? But I have to let her be human, like you said.
yes. Yes. And knowing in general, most all fear comes from a place of love. Even when we hear other moms criticizing or judging or talking about the other moms or those kinds of things, my kids are all in sports, so I hear all kinds of stuff. And there's times where I'm like, oh, keep it in, Robin. This is not the time to unleash. um, when I think about it though, it takes a different kind of woman, and it is rare to have women that feel confident enough in themselves to offer a compliment or a wraparound to another woman. And especially as a parent, it is incredibly hard. And it is the thing we will probably question ourselves the most in ever in our entire lives. And it is, there's really no stopping. It's not this magic number. They turn 18 and then you're done. It is not that. And the judgment comes from that place of, well, if I can say at least I'm doing better than that person over there, or my kid is at least doing better than this kid over here, that has to mean I'm doing something right. That has to mean in some way they are going to be okay. And that means I did okay. But it comes out with such judgment and harsh words sometimes and meanness. But I don't feel like that's the intention of it, or that's the origination of it.
You're so absolutely true. I mean, even thinking back to like middle school and high school, right? When we were comparing ourselves to other women, other girls, because something about them made them better than us and us feel inferior. And so, if we had the upper hand in something, whether it was like raising our hand first and having the correct answer, or like winning prom queen or getting asked out by the guy, that was success.
Right.
But when you can actually look a woman in the eyes and tell them something genuine about who they are or how they're doing something, that makes that connection and the bond. And like it allows you to heal a little and maybe them to heal a little.
100%. 100%. But again, you think generationally, women have been pitted against each other because there was that, again, it's a survival mode competition of I have to be good enough for a man to pick me.
That hits hard so much. Okay, so I walked away from a marriage or like the altar. And I remember this conversation with my mother so distinctly. It was the night before, and I was like, I don't know if I can leave. And she goes, he's so nice. And dating in your 40s is so hard. And I was like, are you telling me to settle?
Yes.
Are you telling me? No.
Yes, but no, but yes, please, because I need to know you're going to be okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad in my first marriage and in my second one. He's a hot mess and a whole different topic. But it was here, now you take care of her. But or here, now you pay for her. I was like, and by the way, I've been pretty independent since I was like 11. What are you talking about? But like, I'm again, that idea of like a piece of property.
Yeah. You just made me think about dowries. And I'm like, oh God, like you had to pay somebody to like to take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge, huge. So it's that again, that like looking back at history, looking back at the patterns, is it actually malicious, or is it that programming and that generational piece that is so ingrained and has been for so many generations? And you cannot expect that things are not going to be bumpy and rocky and that there aren't going to be hard conversations when we are literally the first generation that gets to look at it completely different. And it causes a lot of separation then, and that makes it even harder for women.
I am, this is so curious. I love thinking about the future and what's going to happen, like the technology, but I never have thought about it in the way for women, right? Because we've been handed the script to be the good girl, right? Or like be people pleasing and a perfectionist. But these aren't necessarily going to be things that other girls that are growing up now are necessarily going to fall into. So this is not one of my prepared questions, but I'm so curious. How do you think it's going to change for those girls growing up, not just this next generation, but the future ones?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I think truly, like, it's interesting. My daughter, well, okay. So I talked a little bit about my history and the layers. So I had my first marriage again. Whew, um, learns a lot, learns a lot. And during the time of dating, I wasn't in my 40s, like your mom said, but I was in my late 20s. And I thought for sure I am damaged goods. And you have to mark on like certain paperwork, not married, not unmarried.
Divorced.
Okay, yes, here I am. I am red flag, scarlet letter. Um, at one point, I think I had a garbage man whistle at me, and I was like, "Okay, thank God, I still got it." I'm like, "Robin, come on, hold on." Actually, so my self-worth was on the floor. I was a mess. I was trying to figure things out, and to sit with myself, absolutely not. So, of course, I was definitely putting myself in all the wrong spaces and places and people, and did get to a place where I conceived my first child without consent and gave her up for adoption. And so I met my husband now, who we just celebrated our 17-year anniversary 3 months after I gave this baby up for adoption. So, woo, more damaged goods, because I was like, oh, now I'm fat. Now I've had a baby and I'm divorced. And woo, wants to date this. This terrible. Um, Told him everything, and somehow he still liked me. And I had a bunch of pets at the time. So he said that was the wildest part of it all. We got married, and within the first month of our marriage, we were pregnant, and we knew we wanted a family. We knew this is what we wanted. And the man can sneeze on me and I end up pregnant. So I told him there's no way this is going to stick. And so 14 weeks later, I had a miscarriage. And then a little bit after that, we would put our money together that we got back from taxes and go to travel agent and be like, where can we go with this? Well, and that's when that Zika virus was going around with the mosquitoes. And so we were supposed to go somewhere, and I can't even remember where it switched to Costa Rica instead. But he's like, I need you to go pee on a stick just in case you're pregnant. And I was like, I'm not pregnant. I would know. And of course, all the thoughts in my head of like, oh, God is punishing me and gave away my first one. And now we're never going to have a family. And this is going to be a big deal. So that was the furthest thing from my mind. I was still trying to heal and like reason with myself and get through the shame. And yep, I was pregnant. So pregnant. And that was amazing. And so now this is our almost 16-year-old daughter. The confidence that girl has. And to the point now where she has had conversations with me, she's like, I'm weird. It's hard to have friends because I'm willing to be honest. I don't appreciate drama, and I'll call people out. And she will. It does not matter who you are. It does not matter if you are a big, tall man. It does not matter if you are the most popular girl at school. It does not matter. And she plays soccer, has played soccer. We're now looking at colleges, and she'll be like, nope, I don't have respect for that one, so I know I won't play for them. She can smell you out if you abuse your authority. And
That's
she will
incredible.
challenge you. And I'm like, who are you? I was not you. I am a little terrified of you sometimes, actually. And your dad is real terrified of you. And she loves to stir him up and bring out any of his insecurities. She will just do a mic drop, and then she'll look at him and she'll walk downstairs. I'm like, whew, okay. okay. And she's not wrong. The stuff that she says, it is not wrong. And I'm like, where did you come from? And my husband will say, why are they allowed to talk back? We have three. And I'm like, in the house, though, that should be the safest place. That should be where you're learning all the things. It should be safe to learn. And where else are you going to learn your voice? But we grew up with, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be seen and not heard. All these things. So when do you get to learn as a woman, as a man, that your voice matters and how to express yourself in a way that you can be heard? And I have so many women that come in, they're like, I don't like to have confrontation.
Mhm.
It's not confrontation, it's communication. You're educating somebody on what you need. Whether they respond back in a way that is open or not open, that's information about them. That has nothing to do about you, but we didn't learn that. So everything then is, I'm being combative, and you're not.
Yes. Well, we were never learned to set boundaries, right?
You
And they
think
never
they
taught
don't?
us in school. Yeah.
Keep
What?
that.
That was a whole word?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so to be able to now in my late 30s, be able to have all of these tools to start it's so weird. It's so hard, right? Complicated. I'm not going to say hard, but it's joyful to also recognize that this is now a place that's acceptable to be, and that children like yours are growing up in a space where it is entirely acceptable to be yourself from the time you're born.
Right? Yeah. 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 And I can't imagine. And just with our pregnancy journey, I've always told my kids, like, I don't take you for granted. I'm not saying that there are people out there that do, but there's a different level when you've gone through the loss that we have gone through with multiple miscarriages, multiple stillborn children, and me flatlining in front of my husband during the delivery of our last stillborn because I had a blood clotting disorder they didn't know about. So I almost needed a blood transfusion. And then I was like, we're all done, because literally we can't. I would like to raise the rest of my children that are alive, and you get me pregnant too easily, even on birth control. And so then he went and had surgery, and we were all cleared. And it was a year and a half later, that little Superman grew back, and now we have our 7-year-olds. But the whole pregnancy, I was like, no baby, anything in the house till I make it to 35 weeks, because my previous one, we lost at 30 weeks. And I was just like, I cannot even wrap my brain and heart around this. This is insane. So all of my kids know I'm like, I do not take you for granted. You are the most important job in my life. And so I'm always willing to challenge myself with them and look at myself and say, at the end of the day, is this thing that I need to teach you more important than my relationship with you? And we've told our kids, we've sat down with our kids, and we're like, when you leave the house, you don't have to have a relationship with us. That's kind of on us. Like, a relationship goes two ways. And just because we have the title of being parents, you don't owe us anything. And that's an interesting generational thing too. I never really thought about, but old days, generations just right before us, is you have to have children so you have somebody to take care of you when you're older. And I'm like, I promise you, I will never put that on you, because I know I'm not wiping anybody's butts. I've got limits. So I will hire somebody for that. I cannot.
What you shared with me is so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. I know that life throws us curveballs and you never know what's going to expect, but I love that you've turned it into just like the most beautiful story, especially with your three kids.
Thank you.
I feel this deeply because I'm honestly on the receiving end from my parents, where I just watched my dad take care of my 100-year-old grandmother for 20 years before she passed away. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. And I'm like watching them go through all of that. And I'm like, please have contingency plans, things that like set yourself up for success in whatever because I lived thousands of miles away from you. Yeah. And I'm still still trying to make my life, right? Um, so it's definitely an interesting concept. And I'm glad that you brought it up because a lot of the time, the first thing that people ask you when you're dating are, how close are you with your family? And when I have to say, we're, yep. It's always kind of an interesting, they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe you're a red flag, right? When it's not that at all. It's just that they don't understand or haven't put in the effort to understand you. Yeah. But maybe I didn't put in the effort to understand them.
It's tricky. It's tricky. And there is also where I talk to my clients about that level of accepting what is, and that while a lot of times that puts us into a place of grief, it helps with the healing process because, again, as women, a lot of times we carry the responsibility also of the relationship. And it feels like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I feeling like I'm not doing more or understanding enough or cutting this off? And then it's, well, if I can do this and I can figure this out, why can't my mom or my dad do this as well and figure this out as well? But again, looking at emotional intelligence and that idea of feelings, we did not talk about feelings. That's just not a thing. And rooted in insecurity for a lot of our parents who don't understand that, don't have that open mind, or maybe potentially have trauma histories themselves that they are going to take to the grave, because to actually think about moving forward in a relationship with you would mean having to look at their past too. And for them, it's unimaginable.
Yeah, stepping outside your comfort zone. And going back to that, from the time that I was, living in their house to now, and I'm probably the similar age to where my mom was when she first had me. I haven't even gotten to the place where she would have, been raising me to the full effect. I'm I'm healing still from what it was like growing up with them, right? But I'm more emotionally intelligent than I ever have been. But I've gone through years of learning and getting rid of, what your grandmother tells you or what the script has given you from the world. I don't know that she's done any of that. And it'll be interesting to see in another 30 years what it looks like from that perspective. I don't know anything that she's gone through or how it's been raising me or what that looks like.
100%. And I knew, so my mom passed away 4 years ago. She had COPD. And I was her power of attorney or medical power of attorney, and COVID hit. And she was in a nursing home. So there were stipulations we had finally decided upon that then COVID threw out the window, and she was on life support for 8 days. And the ninth day, the doctors were like, by tomorrow, you're going to have to make a decision. And I looked at my husband and I was like, I never in my life thought that I would be somebody who would have to decide about somebody else's life and then face her mom, her husband, her sister, her brother, and tell them, like, I'm the one who had to decide this. And there were conversations about this. So like I'm winging it here. I don't know. And how somebody who's in stage 4 COPD, how is this even a thing that we're in this place? Like, the woman pulled through and made it like 8 more months. It was insane. But there was a lot there. Right
Mhm.
before all of her medical complications started, I had finally had a conversation with her over the phone where I said, you're not showing up. And my kids are old enough. And I cannot continue to pretend with them that it is okay for you to not be here for them. You live 10 minutes away. You have not made it to one of your grandkids' birthdays. That's now 5. They see with their own eyes, and I'm not going to make anything up because I'm not going to lie to them. You're responsible for your own actions. And that got hard then when she was on hospice. It was like, she just wants her grandkids here. Can you bring them more? And I'm like, sorry, like this is the fruits of your labor. You didn't put in the time to build relation. It does not mean you don't have deep love for them, but it's not there. The actions were not there. The words were not there. So the relationship is not there. But it was it was a grieving process for me. It was very hard for me to accept what is and have this person in front of me that used to be my best friend to now be this person that I'm like, I actually have to look at you as another human being that owes me nothing, that is doing the best that she can do, but I have to say it's not enough. And that created such a disconnect. And there were things that I just couldn't share with her that were going on in my life or that were hard or that were super exciting with the kids because the backstory of how we got there I had not shared with her because there wasn't going to be a connection there. There wasn't going to be an understanding. And I'm already questioning myself as a parent. I can't have guidance or words or whatever you want to call that from her because her words mattered. They had weight and it wasn't appropriate for me. That was too much for me to juggle. And that's a constant grief process. And every time she would call or text, I'd roll my eyes. I'd tell my husband, oh my gosh, here we go again. And he'd be like, okay, but when she passes, are you going to be sad that those are not coming? And I had to sit with that. And I was like, honestly, no, because the pain in the relationship right now is so heavy. And I will probably have a better relationship with her when she passes as a soul rather than this human that I cannot get through to. I can't break through that wall. She's had a stopping point and that's it. And I have to accept that. Otherwise, I'm going to have a contentious relationship with her. And that's not what I want. But it is, whoo, it is hard.
I feel this so deeply. And this is kind of, and I'm not going to call this conversation fun, but that's the fun part about being able to have these types of conversations with women is because I was sitting here listening to you and I'm like, oh my God, this applies to me in so many different ways. It's not the exact story, but it makes me almost be like, me too.
Yeah.
And the weight lifts off
Right?
just a little bit. Yes.
Yes. Yes. There's an understanding around it. There's a context around it. And then it doesn't feel like, again, we don't talk about this stuff. So then I'm the only one and I don't know what to do with this. And I'm not trying to be angry and don't talk bad about anybody. And like, that's your mom. And it doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means that you're in a place of saying, like, here's how this is impacting me. And that truth and that acceptance piece and that recognition allows the weight off of you to say it is okay to say, this is how this is for me.
Listening to you set a boundary and to like clarify for yourself that it's okay gives me permission to set a boundary, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes, for sure.
I love that. Okay. I want to talk about turning wounds into strengths. So you said that the very traits that women are criticized for, like being responsible or empathetic or sensitive, can actually hold power. So how can reframing these traits help women reclaim their freedom and self-worth?
This is so fun too. Feel like it's like the best day ever. All my fun topics. So realizing the black sheep definitely come to me. It's these women, these young women, sometimes girls that I loved working with teenagers at one point, and then I started having teenagers, and I was like, "But too much, just too much." But the women that are asking these questions, the women that are the generational healers in their families, these are the women who have had that high sense of responsibility, that high sense of the empathy, the I can read the room. And a lot of times it came from trauma. It came from I have to be ready to read the room. I have to be the one responsible for keeping the peace in the house. You have your family dynamics, and whether you raise your hand for it or not, just because by nature you are good at this thing and you have this superpower, it is now your role. You now are the one that is responsible, the peacekeeper, the one who has to problem solve, even though it is way beyond your years. You're just the one that is so grounded that we are going to go to you for everything. We're going to pile all of the stuff on you. Yay, congratulations. No, no. So I tell my clients, I'm like, your superpowers were hijacked. You became the easy button. And I am not saying this was malicious or on purpose. It was a function of making the family work, making the family operate somehow. And then as a kid, we have this role, we gain this identity, and then we take that to school. Well, yeah, it's going to also then be at school as well. And then we're stuck in the school with this identity a lot of times, unless we move around quite a bit. And this is who we are. And now we're young adults, and I hear this all the time as a female, especially, who do you think you are to change, to suddenly think you're important, to suddenly have the confidence, to suddenly set the boundaries, to suddenly say, actually, that's not my responsibility. And I just use the word no, and that's a full sentence.
That's my inner critic, like all the time. Imposter
The
syndrome.
internal voice. Yes. So I've taught women that anything we do for 10,000 hours, we're a professional at. There are studies on that. When you start that young, you've had a lot more hours than most everybody else at perfecting it. You are honed in. So where women come in and they're like, oh, my empathy is awful. It's terrible that I can read the room. It's terrible that I sense everybody else's body language and read their faces and da 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 da. And I'm like, no, actually, it's a superpower, but you don't know that it's yours. It's been used and exploited for everybody else. So you think of it as draining, as exhausting, as something that's awful to have, but it is for you. It is yours. Learn how to use it for you, how to reclaim it for you. You're responsible.
Incredible.
Use that for you. Don't look at it as, if I have to budget, if I have to eat correctly, if I have to take care of my body, if I have to do this for my house and those things, like, you get to have this body, you get to have this house, you get to have all of these things. The responsibility and your high level of operating in it isn't for everybody else. It's not for everybody else, but it's drained the life out of you and your life force because you have been told and taught how to use it for everybody else. But it's actually yours. It's been yours the whole time. You've had platforms to learn how to use it and get really good at it, but you've carried it with you through all of those different platforms. It is yours.
So much, because it's making me think now, like, what are the things that I was taught to do from a young age that I can now use as things for me?
Then it feels so much better. It's like, oh, that's actually mine. Okay. And I know I'm really good at it for everyone else. Like, there is that conversation you have to give yourself, though, of permission. You're the only one that could ever give yourself permission to finally say, like, it is okay for me to use it for myself. And that's not actually selfish, because we have a very hard time with that too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's everything, right? Like permission to even sit alone by yourself or to make yourself a really nice meal with not anyone else being around, right? It's like almost dating yourself and falling in love with yourself because you've never, ever given yourself that luxury of taking an introspective look at yourself instead, like somebody you would be dating, rather than, somebody who's across from you who provides that value from an outside perspective.
Right. Or even just like somebody wants you to go do something for them on your calendar, you have time to do it. Energetically, you are wiped out, but you don't know that you're allowed to say no because you don't have a good enough reason. to say that you are just exhausted or you need quiet time to refuel, that feels selfish. And
Yeah.
actually, not because you're the only one running your life. You're the only one. You're the only one who knows what your responsibilities are and that your energy levels operate in a certain way for you to take care of those responsibilities. Nobody else knows. So it is your responsibility for them and for you to say no when you need to say no. Otherwise, you're creating resentment in the relationship, but they don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like those unspoken expectations. If you can't tell somebody how you're feeling or what you want or what you need, they're just going to continue operating like they normally do with no regard.
And you think, oh my gosh, don't they know better? No, actually, they don't. You didn't tell them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this has been an amazing conversation. If you could leave our listeners with one core message about healing, resilience, or reclaiming their voice, what would it be?
One of the things that I learned not till my 40s, and it was because we had that third child, being adopted and looking back and realizing I never felt like I fit in any space. I didn't feel like I belonged. I didn't feel like there were other people speaking my same language. And so for so many years, I operated with the belief of I'm not good enough because it felt like I didn't make sense to anybody else. When that third child was born out of sheer miracle and should not by science be here, he's amazing. I realized that it is not the humans around me that get to make the decision for me whether I belong or not, whether I'm good enough or not, because every human is here learning. And so it is up to me to decide that I am good enough. It's up to me to decide that wherever my feet take me, I already belong. If I hand my power over waiting for somebody else who's not perfect because they are also human, they are also working on their own things, and I ask them, do I have permission to be here? Do I make sense to you? Is this a space that I'm welcomed in? I am handing over at least 75% of my life. And so it's that decision, no matter what has happened, no matter how you've been brought up, recognizing that most everyone is doing the best they can. And when we see that and you're still looking at the other human, like, are you serious? Like, you for real are so messed up, though. Don't hand them your power. Don't hand them that ability to say, yeah, you're good enough or you're not. They can't even see themselves. Most of us struggle just to accept ourselves. Why are you going to ask another human whether you're good enough or not? So that resiliency comes from that place of understanding, like, you are here on purpose. You are a miracle. If you look back 8 generations, it took 254 people to live for you to be here right now. Don't ask another human whether you can be here or not, or whether you're good enough or not. You already are. Decide that and move forward with that and look for the evidence of that, because there's a lot of truth to it. We're just terrible at celebrating ourselves to recognize how much we have already offered in our lives and made happen in our lives and created an impact in our lives. We dismiss it so fast. And it's amazing. It's already amazing.
Love the way that you put that. There are so many thoughts that I want to share with you, but I'm going to call it for today. So, lastly, how can people work with you or connect with you?
I have a website that is Robin L. Hauser Coaching. And I can give you that information as well. I have some freebies. I have a laser focused 2-week coaching program. I have a 12-week one-on-one coaching program. Willing to tailor whatever we need for whoever needs what, because I love, love, love working with women who are ready to reclaim their power and own their own lives and just step into healing. It is profound and it moves so fast and shifts so quickly that I I love every day, and I'm in so much gratitude every day that I get to do what I get to do and the people I get to meet because they're amazing.
Love it. I will grab those links from you and I'll put them in the description of the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Have a good night.
You too.
What I love about this conversation with Robin is how she reminds us that emotional intelligence is not just a concept. It's a practice that changes how we see ourselves and how we show up in relationships. When we learn to notice and to name our emotions, we stop being ruled by them. And when we reframe traits like responsibility, empathy, or sensitivity, traits many of us were taught to see as flaws, we can begin to recognize them again as gifts. Being responsible doesn't mean over-functioning for everyone else. It can just mean being steady and dependable. Being empathetic doesn't mean being drained by others. It can mean connecting deeply and seeing people clearly. Being sensitive doesn't mean being fragile. It can mean being perceptive, intuitive, and wise. Reframing these traits is part of reclaiming our freedom and our self-worth, because the very things that may have been exploited in us are often the very strengths that can set us free. So as a reminder, healing does not end with you. When you choose to break patterns of people-pleasing and silence or self-doubt, you are not just freeing yourself. You are opening doors for future generations and maybe even creating healing ripples backwards through your family. As they see you heal and grow, they'll want to do the same. Because the truth is, your very strengths that you've been told are weaknesses, your empathy, your responsibility, your sensitivity, those may be the exact powers that can set you free. Healing is not about erasing your story or who you have been. It's about rewriting how you carry it forward into your future. So if Robin's story spoke to you, I encourage you to connect with her and explore working with her. And if this episode resonated with you, or you know a woman who needs to hear it, please share it with her. Subscribe, like, or follow wherever you listen, and join us as we continue building this community of resources for women on their healing journeys. On my website, you will also find the Radiant Women's Collective. This is a space where conversations like these are coming alive in person with more than just two people. There are workshops and panels and women's circles. There are open discussions about pretty much any topic you can think about, and suggestions are very much appreciated. You do not have to walk this road alone. We would love to support you. So until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and remember, you were never meant to dim your light. Thanks for tuning in and being here, for healing out loud, and for walking this path beside me. If this episode cracked something open or helped you remember a part of yourself, pass it on and share it with someone you love. For more support, free resources, or the next steps to your journey, head over to my website, myhealingisyourhealing.com. And if you loved today's conversation, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your words help this space grow and help more women find their way home to themselves. If I was your muse today, then my healing is your healing. Until next time.